On to item 5, review the condition of West Riverview Expressway between Chase Street and West Grand Ave and consider repair work in 2023 given this segment is a connecting highway subject to regular traffic.
I just wanted to kind of reiterate that as time continues, as the pavement ages, the so you start off, with the time-based preventative maintenance, and as you get into the condition-based and then more significant intervention methods, and even just doing minimum maintenance efforts to keep the road open. The costs do continue to climb throughout that service life of that pavement. I guess switching gears a little bit, I guess the somewhat complicating factor in this is that this segment of highway is a connecting highway, which basically means that it's a locally owned street that allows carries state traffic, and so the city to perform snow and ice control and do maintenance efforts on that roadway to make up for the additional state traffic. That would include joint sealing, joint repairs, panel patching. Since we receive connecting highway aids, it limits the city's ability to receive other sorts of state funding, such as STP Urban, like what we're receiving for the West Jackson Street project, even the more recent BIL funding that was proposed that we applied for. This, because it's connecting highway, we're not eligible for those funds. The state, in the state's, I guess, determination through the connecting highway agreements, what's local responsibility and what's DOT responsibility. And so the DOT's responsibility would largely be 2-inch overlay or greater, also pavement replacements and pavement rehabilitations. Those would all typically be projects that the DOT would promulgate and move forward under their discretion. In addition, the DOT uses what they call a pavement condition index. It's a PCI value for short. This is the most recent data that we have that they've provided to us on the connecting highway segments. And this section of the expressway from 2nd Street to Grand Avenue, so it's a little bit larger segment than what we're specifically talking about, has a 2026 projected PCI value of 55, which relates to a poor condition. We've had conversations with the DOT about the condition. They've come out and looked at this segment of the expressway. They reviewed it at the time we were asking if we could do a pavement overlay on top of, like an asphalt overlay on top of the concrete, and get their opinion on that rehab method. And at that time, the response was the pavement condition is too significantly failed at this point, that the asphalt overlay would not be an effective solution at this point, and that concrete pavement patching would need to, or other repair methods would need to continue for the foreseeable future. So we currently have a contract signed with the DOT for 2028 on 8th Street, from the South City limits up to Whitrock Avenue. And the DOT is verbally committed to offering 2 more projects in the city, one in 2030 and a third one sometime thereafter. I don't know if that would be 2032 or 2034. And a year ago, conversations with the DOT that the city had with them, it was initially discussed, well, maybe we'll focus on 8th Street, and that's kind of where the 3 projects were, I guess, initially thought, well, we'll just start at the south side on 8th Street and progress to the north towards the expressway. The DOT is certainly open to considering shifting one of those projects to a segment along the expressway, if that's what locally was the preference. So that's always sitting out there, although that's, it's all verbal at this point. There's no commitments, and it is a significant time from now, in which case everything is still aging and requires annual maintenance. So with the connecting highway aids, We get about $320,000 annually through state aids for connecting highways. What we budget and spend annually on contract work, it doesn't include work that the street department does with their maintenance and emergency concrete patches that we perform in-house, or any other curb repairs or asphalt patching. So we budget and contract out $200,000 on connecting highways every year. In addition, snow and ice control would also be covered under the $320,000 that the state provides. So getting to the last part here, slide this out of the way. What we're proposing in the 2023 budget is a pavement replacement. We feel that's the best value for the city at this point. However, it does go beyond the city's, I guess, level of responsibility. We have talked with the DOT about potentially cost sharing on that, because we could do it more cost effectively than a full DOT project, and they would get the benefit of a longer, resetting this pavement life, and we would get the benefit of not having to do more extensive pavement patching at a higher cost. We did look at a significant level of concrete patching in this segment, which we'll call the rehabilitate option. So if we were to concrete patch that entire segment, basically we'd be at $1 million or over $1 million to do that same amount of work. Of course, there's the third option, which is the bare minimum. Of course, that would be, maybe I let Paul speak to this. It would largely include efforts like what they're doing currently on this segment, tearing out basically concrete rubble at this point, repairs that have since failed that are now loose and potentially becoming more of a hazard and an issue during the winter months that consume more and more of the labor resources. But I don't know, Paul, if you want to jump in on any of that stuff.
Sure. Earlier in the week, you want to go back to your pictures? Yeah. So earlier in the week, we started on the northbound lanes just because the Jackson Street was going to have the outside lane closure. So you'll see in the middle picture there where you have the 2-foot wide joint. That was partial depth repairs that was done probably 15 to 20 years ago. We had just completed that when I first started at the city, back in whatever it was there, 08, I think. And so right now what's happening is those partial depth repairs are starting to fail. And what happens is once they fail, the joint, the water starts to get underneath there, and then through the winter months, the water obviously turns to ice and starts to jack those up, and then they break into probably 25 different smaller pieces about the size of volleyballs. So then through the constant freeze-thaw cycle through the spring and things like that, those pieces start to fail even further. So what we've done this in the past and had some relative success for it. We've gone out there, as part of this, we identified, just from Chase Street to West Grand Avenue, about 50 joints that are similar to this, that are actually probably worse than that, that we wanted to fix for the winter months, because obviously if we spend 5 days now, that's going to alleviate probably once a week for 6 weeks in the spring, of having to go out there every single day to patch that and things. So we've gone out there and jackhammered them. I believe we're just about done with the northbound 2 lanes. I wasn't here today, I was gone, so I can't tell you for certain if they got that done or not. But so once we get the northbound lanes, then we're going to go back to the eastbound, and we also have some areas from Chase Street to 2nd Avenue that we want to get to. But so just in that 2,000-foot section, there's almost 100 joints that have failed to that extent, where the partial depths have come apart, and so we're going to remove those and put hot mix asphalt in there for now. Like I say, that typically has lasted anywhere from 2 to 5 years. The stuff that we just did this last fall here, the last 5 weeks that the contractor replaced, we did those about 6 years ago, and last year, and I believe probably 3 or 4 years prior to that, what typically starts to happen is the asphalt and the concrete don't expand and contract at the same rate, and so those start to hump up. And so last year, I believe the fall of the year, we rented a grinder for the front of our skid steer and just took and planed those back to somewhat smooth. But same thing, the dead of winter, February, March, the asphalt and the concrete starts to act differently, and that was a pretty rough ride there in front of Quick Trip on Grand Avenue, just at Lincoln Street. So, ideally, this is just a temporary solution. And the only reason why we're proposing this is just, to us, it seems that it's a better fix with the tax dollars. Obviously, it's a large sum of money that maybe isn't something that, there's a discussion whether or not we should actually be spending this amount of money on it, but we're stuck with it, so.
So I guess just to close real quick, I don't want to paint a picture that it's a doom and gloom sort of dire situation. However, we are at a crossroads. It's a decision point, and prior to proceeding in a particular direction, wanted to, I guess, get the committee up to speed on kind of what we were proposing and why we were proposing it, and I guess if there's a specific direction that the committee would like to head in, certainly at your discretion. But I guess we're kind of painting the picture and trying to show the value where we think we see it. There's always the trade-off, and the trade-off I think is both potential increased costs to the taxpayers, and then also the ride quality and the public dissent, I guess, that might, for the traveling public, that might come from, a rough segment of pavement, which, that happens, and we do get various calls from time to time, but knowing that we're trying to make the best use of those dollars at the right time.
Thanks, guys. Questions or comments by committee? Dennis?
Now, the repairs you're talking about, is that strictly without the DOT giving the city anything? If that's the case, then do you have the money in your budget to do that type of repairs, or what do we?
So
I mean, DOT, well, be careful what I say here, but I mean, they're almost shifting. You're talking about 8th Street and everything else, but talking about these repairs, well, you do have money for it, though, or where are you going to get it if it's going to have to be fairly expensive?
So the DOT would not be participating in this particular proposal that we're making. We did propose it in the 2023 budget, which is currently under consideration, and so the spending request is above what we would normally ask for by about $500,000. So we don't have, of course that budget hasn't been approved yet, but preempting that budget discussion, wanted to make sure that we provided some context to that request.
Okay, thank you.
Sherry?
Thank you. So the 8th Street project, we know we've been years and years and years. So for sure, they're talking 2030 for A Street. Did I read that right?
Yep, that is verbally what they're offering at this point, although, we don't have a signed agreement with them yet.
Because I know they keep pushing and pushing and pushing. So if we had verbal that they're going to do part of A Street, and I know you said that they would be willing to do 2 other projects. So if we did 3 different segments on A Street, let's say with that in 2030, but if we were to use some of that project with the DOT in 2028, is that what you're saying? 2028, possibly, then that would kind of take away from one step on A Street in 2030-ish.
Right, yeah, so the project in 2028 is already signed with the DOT, and there's an agreement to do a project on A Street from the south city limits up to Whitrock Avenue, so that's already set in 2028. The next potential project would be in 2030, and initially it was thought, well, we'll do the next segment north of the one that was just completed in 2028 on A Street, of course. The option, though, for the city is that if there's a local preference to shift the money in the project from A Street onto another segment of connecting highway, the DOT is open to that discussion.
Now, so when I'm reading this, we're spending approximately $75,000 a year just to do these little patchworks on Chase. Is that what? I see the street department has annually expensed average $75,000 per year over the past 15 years in asphalt patching and connecting highways, but I didn't know what the total. That was on page 25, I think, of the packet. But I just didn't know if that meant that section that we're talking about on Chase.
Is
Or am I
connecting
reading?
highway maintenance, other than contract work, it's annually expensed on average about $75,000 per year, at least over the last 15 years, on connecting highway maintenance, which would include maintenance other than contract maintenance.
So that's, sorry, Sherry. So that's $75,000 a year. We typically budget about $50,000 a year for concrete joint repairs. What we do is we're always having a hard time getting the contractor back this time of the year to take care of the concrete blow-ups and things like that, because it was, 8 patches here, or 10 patches here, or things like that. So probably about 10 or 11 years ago, we started doing that work ourselves. We got set up to be able to do it. And so that typically is about $75,000 a year. So that could be some of these partial depths that have failed beyond repair, where the pavement outside of that has failed, or the concrete blow-ups. Typically what happens in July or August, when the pavement temperatures get above, or the air temperatures get above 95 or 105 degrees, the miles of concrete pavement that we have start to work against each other, and then that's where you'll see, that the pavement will start, the surface will start to spall on it, or we'll get a mini speed bump where the pavements actually push against each other and end up being, anywhere from 1.5 inches to 2 inches, 2.5 inches high, and then, like I say, the joint will start to fail or something like that. So we'll take care of those ourselves, instead of having the contractor come back, because most of the time they weren't willing to come back this, a month ago or whatever, to do that work for us. So.
Right. And then, obviously, why this was presented, this part of that road is the worst, according to what you're saying here.
Yep, that's correct.
And so if I'm reading this right, so the replacement cost of $667,000, that's taking it to be like we would redo that road correctly, like the road would be normally.
Yeah, so the current scope that we're looking at is removing the concrete pavement that's there, primarily leave the curb that's there, patch the segments that need patching for the curb. But otherwise, the pavement comes off, and then we look at putting an asphalt pavement back in.
Very, very similar to what the DOT did on Highway 13 south from the city limits to town of Saratoga, about halfway to Highway 73. I think it was 2 years ago.
Yeah. And how much would it, so what kind of numbers, so you're saying that it's in bad condition? I mean, I know you showed the pictures and that we can't put asphalt over the top of it or try to do anything like that. But then you said, I know it, with the temperature changes, then you have ups, downs, and then it crumbles. Just trying to look at the picture of what the cost is. I mean, yes, the DOT will pay for it verbally, part of it in 8 years, 9 years. But I'm just trying to figure out what kind of cost will incur those 8 years compared to if we would to fix it, I guess is what I'm kind of looking at.
Yeah, there's potential to, if we continue concrete patching efforts as needed over that 8 or 9 years, it could get as expensive, if not more expensive, than redoing the pavement. In addition, in eight years, the condition of the other connecting highway segments, like 8th Street, we would have to, Rapids would have to be okay with foregoing a project elsewhere, like 8th Street, in order to divert those state funds to that segment.
Tom, go ahead.
We could sit here quite a while and talk about this. But unfortunately, half the council didn't show up tonight for the meeting on it, and it is in the budget. As you can see, what's going to on your agenda yet to come up is with referrals, talking about transferring money from one to the other. Obviously, you can see I got a referral in from 2016 on 8th Street, and that's after 8th Street was becoming terrible. So, and now it's 2028 to look at having it done. So now a talk is transferring some money maybe from that to this in 2028. But what does that do to 8th Street? 8th Street's beyond repair now. Build back better. Not just the people here, not just the people in Madison. We got the people in Washington that can't even vote right on things. The transportation system has left to rot, not just deteriorate. It's been left to rot. My feelings on this, something has to be done. Should we fork the bill, $660 or whatever, $70,000 versus over $1 million if we rebuild it to what it is, to put concrete back in? Which to me would be a longer range solution than blacktop. But that $667,000 should be state tax money. So if we do this, after we pay for it, I hope nobody's thinking that somewhere down the line that the state's going to pay us back, because that's not going to happen. That's like wishing find that gold ring hanging on the tree somewhere. Joe, just I guess to clarify, the concrete patching where they cut out the big sections, like that, how much do we budget for that every year?
$200,000 typically is what we budget and contract out.
Is that what you were talking about, Sherry? Because I didn't know if you were getting the right figure or not for what you were asking about, because that was not that $75,000 that you were talking about.
No.
Okay. All right. So it's a battle that we have. It's replacing these sections. Now it's failed in so many places. This is the worst of the worst. on the expressway. Drive the rest of it is it's not the greatest in other parts either. It's just the worst of the worst overall. So it's just should we be using our city tax money versus what should be a state, I think anyway, a state project. And if we start to do this, what's to keep them from just dropping the ball? And now in the next section, wherever, whichever section, the expressway or whatever, somewhere, they don't want to fund that, so we dip in our pockets again for that. Somewhat they're stuck in a rock and a hard place because we have to do something. Something has to get done. This is a prime example of meeting with our state legislators, which we don't do. Higher ups may here, but we don't. This is a meeting where next week, Friday, at Midstate, a representative should be pounced upon out at Midstate, the Heart of Wisconsin Legislative Committee, on these things. Just remember, A Street has all them businesses on. The expressway is a busted up road with very few businesses on, actually, compared to A Street. Something has to be done. I think this is the committee can, vote on what I guess the recommendation is. It is in the budget already. It can be taken out. But this is something that's going to be obviously left up to, I think, the entire council to decide on, is this a project that we do and we pay for, or what? Like I started out with, this is an item that probably the entire council should have been at least encouraged by themselves, by seeing what the agenda was, should have encouraged them to show up at, talk about. We did 2 nights ago. I guess we should have again tonight. So it's just once again letting the state off the hook without really responding, just about like they did a couple days ago when they gavelled in and gavelled out and wouldn't even discuss nothing. That's how this show's being run down there. I think people have to keep in mind that too. And that's not necessarily the high ups in the government in Madison. That's the one that's sitting in that body, day in and day out. How corrupt they are. I think this is just, we can do it. But to me, it's totally a change in how the game is played. Like I said too earlier, is that our transportation system in this country is a disaster. It's not just here; it's everywhere. It's been let to rot. People felt good by it because we weren't spending money on it. Now that everything's broken, I guess the one who does squeal the loudest gets the money. This road's been there for 44 years. It's carried one heck of a lot of traffic over that time. I also think that people didn't want to realize when we got away from the railroad so much and put everything onto trucks, that was going to further speed up the destruction of our highways. So anyway, I just think it's whatever this committee recommends to do, I guess, and whatever the council in a few weeks recommends to do with the budget, it's to me, it's just a shame that we're in this situation. Just a shame that we can't even get a commitment, that not that the state would say next year or 2024, but say 2025 or something. So it makes us, and I understand that it makes us then look at where could we get the money. So we take it from another project that's long overdue to do this. And that's an option, and it would help, but it takes away from the one that's long overdue now to make that further long overdue. And I think the two go together in a sense, and Expressway, 8th Street, and that. And 8th Street's it's failed. It's basically trying to just struggle through, stagger through, whatever, till something is finally done with it. And now we're made to look at taking money from that, or possibly as a recommendation, used towards the expressway over here. That's why I guess we got a 5-year plan. That's why, and that can change and whatever. But I think it's just it's a tough choice. We have, by getting into the major highways and that coming through your communities, it's and with the times of how money is divvied out, it has put us at a total disadvantage. I realize that the state puts projects out year and years down the road and that type of thing. But I really wonder how much it's really considered of who really needs the money that gets it versus, You look at how much goes to Milwaukee and Madison. Obviously, there are a lot more people, a lot more traffic. I can't deny that. You drive down those sections in 94 and that in the city down there, seems like about every 10 years they're redoing it, redesigning it, not just redoing it, redesigning it. And there's always money for that. Hundreds of millions of dollars. Not saying that those things don't necessarily need to be done. But why do they get it and we can't? This is a political game. And what is recommended here is we are on the losing end. We don't even have a relief pitcher to come in, other than our own tax, our back pockets, our tax money. So I think, Mr. Chairman, that's probably all I have to say, because it's just, I think it's, you know, I guess venting some frustration, a lot of frustration. Again, something that has to be done. So it's up to you. Back to you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Tom. And I do share your frustration with this situation. Taking away from our A Street projects, which are too far out, in my opinion, 2030. It's really a rock in a hard spot. Joe, you mentioned potential cost sharing. Can you speak a little bit more to that? Is that for the replacement cost, or?
That was during the conversation that I had with the DOT. It was in an effort to see if there was any potential, between the city and the state, that we could both benefit from a cost share. But yes, it was for pavement replacement. It was still for city forces to do the work, because we could do it sooner and cheaper. And if they were able to reimburse the city for a portion of it, perhaps even where we could just allocate 1 year's worth of contract dollars, the 200,000, or some other percentage thereof, and then the state pick up the rest. That's what was proposed, but they were reluctant, I guess primarily restricted to their other allocations of funds and what was available.
So you weren't given a definite answer one way or the other, but mostly
It
leaned
was a
towards the no?
definitive no.
It was.
Yeah. All they could offer was the two further projects in 2030 and a third one thereafter.
Can you speak to the lifespan of an asphalt replacement compared to concrete like it is now, and what potential maintenance or work that would have to be done in the future in that stretch of road, maybe sooner than what concrete would need?
So the difference between asphalt and concrete, they do have a different life cycle. They do have different upfront costs. They have different types of maintenance that you perform on them, of course. And then they also, based on how the structure is designed and what the traffic loading is, and impacts to other variables like moisture, groundwater saturation, and the road base, those sorts of things can affect the road differently between the two structures. But so the asphalt option would be a lower upfront cost. It could be installed on a shorter time frame. It could be installed under traffic. Concrete would be a longer or more expensive upfront cost. it would have a longer lifespan, not necessarily a cheaper life cycle. It could go either way depending on some of those variables that I mentioned. But I guess in order to get in and do the project under traffic in a cost-effective way to get a significant restart on a pavement life, asphalt is what we were scoping, at least for this project.
Thank you. Any other, Sherry?
Thank you. I just want to re-clarify my comments when I was talking about the project on A Street. In no way, shape, or form was I saying anything about taking that away from A Street, because we need that. I mean, I'm trying to save money, trying to save the city money. I understand that. But I don't like to see piecework where you're out there fixing. And in the end result, we have a less made or a poorer product made, and we're spending the same amount of money. I know there's ARPA funds that we could use for this section. I don't think we can wait until whenever we get this done. So I guess I would make a motion that we would put it in the budget. So, and what they do on Common Council night, I guess, is what they do. But I would like to use the ARPA funds for this. We all know our streets are rough. That's a main area right there. We have a lot of semi-traffic, a lot of citizen traffic going in all different directions right there. I think it needs to be done. And unfortunately, yes, the DOT should be paying for some of that, but I don't think we can wait that long. So I'd make a motion to include it in the budget. Thank you.
We have a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
I'll second it, but what dollar figure are we talking about here? Do you have any idea?
It would be the approximately 670,000.
Okay.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? I will say I can't support this. I understand the work needs to be done. To take the full brunt, the $660,000 next year, this topic has already been in the crosshairs on budget talks, and I'm skeptical that council's gonna approve this. But that's not why I'm voting no, and I'm voting no because of exactly what Mr. Riom said. We do this. Are we going to be expected to continue to take the brunt of replacement costs moving down the road? I think it's a slippery slope. Maybe it's a one-time deal, but it's the principle of it. You know, this is a state highway, and they share responsibility in replacement. So I will be voting no. Any other discussion? Dennis?
Oh, I agree with you, and I'll vote for it mainly to bring it to the full council so we can discuss it. But I agree with you wholeheartedly. I think that this is should be a state project, not everything thrown into the city to have to pick up this type of a cost. And then it's basically what you're saying, temporary anyway. So, but be very interesting to see how the council looks at it.
Thank you. Sherry?
And I agree with both of you. However, we all know, especially streets engineering, the state's giving less and less money every year, stretching things out, not following the schedules that they had. And meanwhile, municipalities sit with roads that are in terrible situations, and making the municipalities piece them along, and it's like, well, if we would have known that they weren't going to pay for it in anyways, you know, we would have spent the money and had a road, and a very good road, and not have to spend the same amount of money just throwing it down the toilet. So that's just why I voted. Thank you.
Okay. Any other discussion? Hearing none, we'll go to vote. All in favor, respond with aye.
Aye.
And I am the only nay, so the motion carries. All right, moving on. Item 6, review the referral list. So as we can see, Mr. Ray Ohm's referral for back in 2016 is still top of the list for the future of 8th Street. Item 7, the feasibility study, which is in progress. 10, review the bid results for the West Riverview Expressway Traffic Signal Improvement Project and consider awarding the contract to the low qualified bidder. That is the scope is being reworked. 11, request from Zachary to consider removing pavers in West Boulevard to 2nd Ave South between Roundabout and Lion Street. Anything on that one, Joe?
No.
12, request from Austin to discuss beer and wastewater. We can leave that. Request from Rayom for quiet zones for trains on the east side, and that will kind of hinge off of our study that's being performed on the west side. Any other referrals to add?
I don't
Sure.
know if this would be considered a referral or not, but I just didn't know. I know I had some calls with the new roundabout. Are we proposing to put any similar small shrubbery, kind of like we have the existing one by the roundabout in that structure?
Not as part of the DOT contract. However, landscaping in that area could be done, next spring or thereafter, after the project's done.
Okay. And was there money in the budget for that, I would assume? Or,
Not as part of the DOT contract, no.
thank you.
Go ahead, Tom.
I think if, you wanted some type of shrubbery or something to put in, so we weren't looked at taking money from somewhere else next year, that maybe something should be looked at of whatever amount of money to put into the budget, that it would be something to take care of, and that it would be there then, set thing, so that might be something to look at.
Would that be in your guys, or in our budget, or would that be for parks? And sorry, I
Probably
wasn't
would be
looking.
something that would be in ours, and just, yeah, we'd have to have the Parks Department design something and we can get pricing on it.
I mean, I know
Or it could be something we could do in 2024 budget, through the 2023 process.
I know it's just a nice feature, but I know we have much more important things to worry about, but I was just curious. Thank you.
Would you guys happen to know about how much it costs for the Baker Street roundabout? Any idea? No.
I believe the Baker Street roundabout was post-DOT project as well. The primary reason we didn't include it as part of the contract project is because the landscaping cost would be 100% city cost anyway, and largely we'd be paying a premium for it. So it was better to just, do something on a temporary basis and consider something for the future.
Anything else? All right, item 7, set the next meeting date. It looks like November 3rd. Do we know the chamber availability?
Yes, November 3rd at 5 o'clock, it's open.
Everybody good with that? Okay, November 3rd, 5 o'clock. And item 8, adjournment. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
Motion, a second. Dennis seconds. All in favor to respond with aye.
Aye.
Aye. Have a good evening, everyone.